Hello, I'm Steve Bird, and I'm the laser shop lead here at Forge Greensboro Makerspace. I run this department with the help of, at the moment, Jeff Thomas and Ronnie Staten. So they are the two mentors we have currently. And this is a really cool department. We've got a bunch of different lasers. They're all what we call CO2 lasers. They work mainly on wood, acrylic, some leather, cardboard, any of that sort of stuff. You can also engrave glass or stone, and you can mark metals and glass using spray-on stuff.
Hello, I'm interrupting myself because I forgot to mention one of the most important things, and in fact, the most important thing to know about materials in the laser, what you should not put in there. The one material you should never, ever, under any circumstances, put in the laser is vinyl or PVC. Essentially, vinyl is PVC. It's polyvinyl chloride, and the chloride is the problem. If you try to laser vinyl or PVC, it will release hydrochloric acid gas and chlorine gas. Chlorine gas is one of the gases that was used in chemical warfare in World War I, which is now banned. So, if you do not wish to create chemical weapons, and I certainly do not want you to create chemical weapons, then do not put PVC or vinyl in the laser ever under any circumstances. If you do, and you are aware of what you're doing, I will take appropriate action, let me just say. Otherwise, I tend to be pretty understanding about various things, but that's one thing I have a zero tolerance policy for. All right, back to the previously recorded video.
So this video is to show you how the department works, give you a basic orientation on the mechanics of things, and there will be some separate video to talk about the software, and we are going to run you through how to start a job on what is currently our beginning laser. So the first most important thing in this department is safety. These lasers do heat things up to a very high degree. That's how they end up cutting and engraving things. And when you've got heat on things like wood and acrylic and paper and cardboard and whatnot, you do have a fire risk. And that is not negligible. We have had some minor fires in here in the past. So it is very important that you know some of the safety stuff. This is our laser department fire extinguisher. It is a special kind of fire extinguisher that does not use chemical foam. It just uses very cold carbon dioxide gas that gets sprayed out. The reason we have that is that you don't need to worry about whether getting chemical foam all over everything is going to make more damage than a fire will. I want you to not hesitate. If you can't get something put out within 15-20 seconds of blowing on it or smothering it or whatever, use this. And there's a little pin here that you need to twist really hard and pull out. Then you pick this up here, squeeze this down, and point it at a fire.
Hello, interrupting one more time just to mention one more safety concern, which is lifting the lid of a laser while it's working. Some of the lasers have working safety systems in them so that when you lift the lid, it cuts the job off. But Blue Jay currently does not have a functioning safety switch, and Big Reds can not be working at various points. We should be working on this to make those things safer, but one way or the other, I do not want you to take a chance and just assume that if you lift the lid, you're going to be safe. You can end up lasering your hand or your face or whatever you stick in there if it's running and you open the lid and there isn't a safety mechanism that is functioning. So that is it for now. Back to the video, and I think this is my final interruption.
This right here is the laser that we first train you on. We refer to this one as Blue Jay. So I'm going to take you through everything you need to do to start a job on here. First thing you want to do is make sure that things are clean. Clean optics are optics that will last a while.
Didn't anyone ever tell you to make sure your optics are clean?
They're not astronomically expensive, but we don't want to spend huge amounts of money on them either. So first thing I'm going to do is check and make sure that the lens is clean. right here, there is a collet. And I am going to turn this collet about a half turn that direction. And then this little shaft comes out. I can then unscrew the shaft from the nose cone. And then I'm able to inspect the lens and make sure it looks clean. So usually I will do a couple of things here. I'll go ahead and look at it through around right to one of the lights up above, look at it on both sides, and then I'll turn around, make sure I've got a light right over my shoulder, and see if I can get a reflection of that light on here so I can see whether that looks hazy. And that looks pretty good to me. Now, in this case, this is good, but oftentimes you will want or need to clean this. So there are usually some cotton swabs and some lens cleaner sitting around. Thank you very much. There are usually some lens cleaner spray and some Q-tips sitting around the department. There should be. If you don't see them, keep looking, and if you don't find them still, let somebody know. And I'll go ahead and spray a couple of squirts onto the end of a Q-tip here. And then I will very gently swab the lens and then dry it off with the other end. Go ahead and do the other side as well. And there we are. As I said, it was already clean, so that was just to demonstrate. We're going to go ahead and screw this back on here again. And actually, before I reinsert this up into here, I am going to take a look at the mirror that's inside here. So there's a little mirror that's in here, and there's a little mirror that's in here. Some of them look relatively clean, but if they looked like they had some crud or any other kind of contaminants on them, it would be a good idea to clean those with the same Q-tip cleaning solution. Dirty optics lose power, they lose focus, and can damage the optics much more quickly. So I've gone over to our scraps area and gotten just a little scrap of Baltic birch plywood. This is one of the most common uses that we tend to use around here. And I'm now going to put this in our bed. Now, if I was just engraving this and not doing any cutting on it, then I might just place it directly on the bed. Because I'm actually cutting through the thing, I usually like to have it lifted up off the bed with this little homemade, janky, many years old thing that we've got here, but it's still getting the job done. And this gives us a nice level surface to put stuff on that is raised up off the bed so that smoke can get blown down through the cuts and have room to escape. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in here. We do have some weights and stuff that you can use if you've got a larger piece that has a bow in it or anything like that. This is a small piece, and we don't really need that at the moment. And down here, we have 4 red rocker switches. They all turn on when they are activated. First one I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on the main system power. So you see that lit up. Over here, our controller turned on. Interior lights turned on. Motors turned on. We've got these targeting lasers here that we may end up upgrading at some point. Act like the targeting lasers in all our other machines. For the moment, this does a decent enough job. Though now that this is on, I'm going to go ahead and focus this thing. So there should be a little hook here that has some little focus tools. This is the distance that you're supposed to have between your workpiece and the nozzle of your laser. So I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to hold it with my left hand, And then with my right hand, there are these two little, what are called momentary switches here. And so holding the top one raises the bed, holding the bottom one would lower the bed. So there are two different ways you can do this to get this in the correct focus. One is to just keep tapping this button until you just about end up in contact with it. The other thing I could do, I'm going to go ahead and drop it for a moment, and it's close but not quite there. I then loosen this same collet that we were working with earlier, drop the head down, and then tighten the collet back up. Okay, so once again, that's this collet here. If you get this close to focus but a little bit out, a little bit far away, you can then loosen the collet, drop the head until it touches this, and then just tighten this back up and you know you're in focus. Either one of those techniques is just fine, whichever one works best for you. Okay, so this is the control pad for our laser. This is a little display screen. That I have my workpiece in the relationship to my laser head that I want. I'm going to start my job in the upper left corner, or as we see here, back left corner. You can think of it as upper on the software, but it's back here. So I've got that there. So then I'm going to come over here and hit the origin key. So what the origin key says is the origin point that we chose in the file. Again, that's covered in the software video. It's going to set that point equal to this location. So this is where we're going to start the job from. I then need to make sure that we've actually got the file that I sent here in. So I've already sent the file in. Again, that'll be covered in the other part of the video. And you can see here in preview of the file I just sent is showing up here. That looks correct to me. I'm going to hit enter. That enters it into memory. You see a larger preview of what we're doing here. You see here that we've got these two different layers. You might want to double check the file that you've created and make sure that these speeds and powers match up with what you intended to send. You can ignore this stuff up in the top corner. That can be confusing to you. It has nothing to do with the file that we're doing right now. Now that I've got this in memory and I've hit origin, now I can hit the frame key, and when I do that, the laser head will move, showing me the bounding box of my file. So I'm going to hit frame. So that shows me where the job is going to go. And that's always a good idea to make sure that it's not going to zip off to some other location if you forgot to hit origin and start doing something elsewhere, or if you had a problem in the software setup that you didn't realize you had a setting set. Always a good idea to double check and make sure this is going to do what you think it's going to do, where you think it's going to do it. Also, this will be covered more in the software portion as well, but we have these little test cards for each machine that show you what various speed and power combinations will give you for lines and for fills. And these are usually living over by the computers that we use to run the software. All right, so we're going to go ahead and turn on the rest of the systems down here. So earlier, we hit this top switch, which is just the main system power. Now I'm going to turn on the second switch. That turns on the laser power supply. The laser requires tens of thousands of volts of power, so that needs a separate power supply, and we have now activated that, so it is ready to take commands and turn on and off when we want it to. I'm then going to turn on the water switch. So this sends cool water through the laser tube, carrying excess heat away and stabilizing the temperature of the glass tube. Finally, down here, I'm going to turn on my air assist. So you might hear a little hum there. Air assist is there to blow smoke out of the way of your laser and to protect your lens. So I can feel that blowing on my finger there. That positive air pressure coming out is going to blow smoke out of the way of the laser so the laser can see the material better. And they said it'll also blow smoke away from the lens. That lens is relatively delicate. It's a exotic material called zinc selenide, which is also poisonous, so you don't want to touch it if you can avoid it. We want to have to deal with that lens as little as possible, so air assist helps that. Last thing that I've got to do is make sure that the exhaust is on and is set up correctly for what we're doing. So you need to take smoke and fumes away from what you're doing. And the way we have this set up at the moment, we've changed this a little bit over time, and if this is changed by the time you're seeing this video, we will tell you about any changes. This is what we currently have for an exhaust switch. It's just a knob that goes from off to where we put this screw here, because it was overheating the exhaust sometimes. But really, you probably don't need to turn it up much past 50% if there's only one person using a laser. And oftentimes this might already be on, depending on whether or not other people are using other lasers in the department right now. If you or any of the other folks here are getting more smoke building up than you think you should, you can always adjust this upward. But we like to be as quiet as we can because we can be a loud and noisy department and we don't like to be the noisy neighbors. So the other thing that we need to do, and this might well soon change, but we need to make sure that the blast gates are set correctly. So got a little set screw here. This is closed for Blue Jay. All right. So if you see the hole, that means the hole is not down here. So I'm making sure that that is open. We don't see the hole. That means the hole is right there so the smoke can come out. So Big Red is closed. The one for the boss is closed. We might be getting a new automated blast gate system shortly. Hopefully, this part of the video ends up being cut out. If not, there's how you do it. So at this point, it's not a bad idea to go run back through your list of what you're supposed to have done before you hit start. We check to make sure we remember where the fire extinguisher is. We then took the lens housing out so that we could check the lens from both sides, cleaned it as necessary. We also checked the two mirrors here, cleaned as necessary. They did not need cleaning. I then turned the machine on, focused my lens to my workpiece, made sure that my file was sent over to the controller here. Once I enter that file into memory, I hit origin. Actually, I think I did that earlier, but you can do it at that point as well. So I hit origin to make sure I've told the laser where the origin point is relative to the file that I've sent. And then I hit frame once again so that we see exactly where it's going to do what it's going to do. Okay. Turned on the rest of the systems, laser power supply, water pump, air assist. Then I went and turned on the exhaust, made sure the blast gates were set up as I wanted them. And yeah, that's all our stuff. So let me go ahead and close this. Now I'm ready to go ahead and start. And while the job is running, you will notice that over here we see a little flashing light. That is a lightning bolt that we are creating. The lightning bolt is conducting electricity through the gas mixture that is producing the photons that are the laser. The laser, by the way, is a 10.6 micrometer wavelength, which is about the same wavelength as body heat. So that means if the Predator walked in here and was going to take one of us out, we would be about the same color as the laser, just the laser would be tens of thousands of times brighter. You can see here that we are just going back and forth, engraving the surface with heat, and then we're about to go and cut out the cutout parts. So you can see once again here the much brighter lightning bolt there. All right, so let's see if that actually cut out correctly. Yep, there we are. It didn't fall through on its own, so I wasn't 100% sure. You can see there's a little bit of a gray drop shadow there. That is something that I did in the software file using dithering. You can see you should hopefully get kind of a golden brown edge here. Is depending on the laser you're using and the settings that you use, that might be lighter than that. We cut out the little hole, and now you can just put this on your keychain and have your Forge keychain. Next, one thing I didn't mention is some jobs can be really bright, and so we've got these things to put over the window in case you want to watch it, but it's too bright. The job we just did was not particularly bright, so I didn't really bother. Last things we need to do are shut everything down and clean everything up. And same red switches I showed you to turn on earlier, I'm just turning all of them off now. Doesn't matter what order. Order does not matter in this case. Go ahead and take your workpiece. If there is enough usable, salvageable stuff on this, then you can put it in the scraps area. If it is not enough to really use, then we will throw it in the trash. I'll show you the scraps area in a moment. Well, actually, yes, I need to go get some paper towels. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and go by there on the way. These cubbies right here have scraps that are free to use. And the two rightmost cubbies here have scraps that are free to use. This cubby here is for short-term user storage. If you have something where you just want the piece here and don't want to have to take it back and forth for like a week, then you can feel free to put it here with your name and a date. It is not meant for long-term storage. We do have long-term storage you can rent. If you are keeping stuff here longer than a week at a time, then you're going to need to do that. So, we have our own department trash can. The reason for that is that our trash tends to be kind of pointy, and if we're throwing it all in this, it's going to poke holes in the plastic, and then nasty gunk is going to come out the bottom. So, we're going to put this in here. In terms of whether there's enough useful stuff on there to save it, when in doubt, throw it out. I'm just going to come over to the kitchenette area and grab some paper towels. Sorry, I keep on raising my voice when I'm facing away from you, forgetting I've got a microphone on. All right. In here, I was using this little grid that we were seeing earlier. I'm going to put that back down on the bottom down here. Now, the last person to use this machine didn't really clean it very well. I was going to clean it before I did this video, but I figured, if there's a mess, then I can show cleaning it a little bit better. So, this is a bottle of plain old white kitchen vinegar. You'll notice it is marked not water. Right? I'm used to use some more toxic stuff to clean these things, acetone, stuff like that. 9 times out of 10, regular kitchen vinegar will do it, and kitchen vinegar is so non-toxic, it is literally food. So, we are. See, that's nasty. And last thing we need to do is turn off the exhaust. So, before you turn off the exhaust, make sure that you double check around the department, see that nobody else is currently also using a laser, or make sure that nobody else is about to use a laser and sitting over here at the computers. You might want to ask them, hey, I'm done. Do you want me to turn off the exhaust or not? They might say, oh no, leave it on. I'm about to do that. So in this case, I'm the only one in the department. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this to off. That is pretty much it. After watching this orientation video, you have to do 3 buddy cuts with myself or with one of the other department mentors. A buddy cut is basically just a supervised use of a laser. You need to do 3 on that beginning laser that we just talked about throughout this video. After you do 3 of those, you can use that solo if you wish. Then have Big Red, which is the next one you graduate to. That only requires 1 buddy cut because it's very similar to Blue Jay. And this may change with changes in what lasers we have. But at the moment, you would graduate to that one. This one is not yet active. We will see what happens with that. The Boss requires its own separate training video because it's got some significant differences from the other ones. It's got a different operating system, basically, and it's got more motorized parts. Then this requires its own 3 separate buddy cuts. This one over here is the Thunder Nova 63. We just call it Big Thunder. And this one requires 2 buddy cuts. It's very similar to the 2 ones that I showed you first. It is our nicest, newest, neatest one. And so we want to make sure that you have learned your chops before getting up to this one. So that is it. Feel free to go on to the Forge website, member portal, go to the shop hours calendar, book your time for your first buddy cut with me or one of the mentors. And yeah, we look forward to having you join us for the lasers. Happy lasering.